right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is my pleasure to welcome you to our first Fireside Chat of 2025, the business of aviation. I am Dr. Reginald King. I am the chair of the Business and Entrepreneurship Department here at Prince George's Community College. It's an honor to have you here. It's an honor to have you students, our faculty, and our guests here today. Today is a unique opportunity, and a lot of you may think of aviation and you may say, well, Dr. King, I'm not involved, I don't care about aviation or aviation. Aviation touches every single department here. Every major aviation is a part of, whether it's an economist, whether it's engineering, whether it's technology, they do, and think of aviation as a multi-billion-dollar opportunity for yourself. So, and to tell you about aviation, 18% of minorities make up aviation. So we hold a small part of aviation. But I want to talk to you today, and we are glad to have George Guillaume here.
George Guillaume. But it's
I remember the last, and I've known George now for over 20 years. George has recently joined AECOM as the Senior Aviation Director for the New York metropolitan area, bringing a wealth of expertise and remarkable track record. Before AECOM, he served as the program director for Delta Airlines, where he oversaw the $1.5 billion expansion of JFK's terminal. $1.5 billion he oversaw. I think we should give him a hand clap for that. His leadership was instrumental in achieving a 100% completion rate. George also served as Deputy Program Director for Delta's $4 billion terminal construction at LaGuardia Airport, playing a pivotal role in delivering the major project on time and fostering strong collaboration. During his tenure as Assistant Resident Engineer at Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, George led a $376 million JFK runway reconstruction, ensuring compliance with the FAA standards while minimizing operational disruption. Some of you look at engineering as one thing. George was able to take engineering and pivot his way into business. So today, I'm also pleased to introduce our Fireside Chat moderator, Dr. Kathy Yorkshire. Dr. Yorkshire has been here at Prince George's Community College since 2001, and she teaches introductory and upper level courses. Her expertise will make her the perfect person to lead us into our discussion today. I want to thank my interns, my volunteers, and all of you for showing up. What I encourage you to do today is please listen, take notes, and really absorb. And I want you to engage. At the end, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. If you have any questions, talk to him. He's a wealth of knowledge. And again, we have him for an hour and 15 minutes. I want you to pick his brain. Talk to him about internships. Talk to him about breaking into the business area. And talk to him about your major and how your major, how many of you are business majors? All right, any other majors? Just give me a couple of majors. Yell them out.
Law and safety.
Law and safety.
Computer science.
Security.
Computer science.
Computer science. All right, George, I think they all fit into where you're gonna go. All right, so I'm gonna turn this part over into our Dr. Yorkshire and we will move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. King. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, 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 and welcome to our special guest today, Mr. George Guillaume. All right, so as Dr. King said, we're going to have a conversation up here, and I'm going to ask Mr. Guillaume some questions about his experience and his expertise, but this is for you. So near the end of our time together, you're going to have an opportunity to come up here and ask your own questions. So as we have our conversation, jot down your questions, make mental notes, okay? All right, so we're going to get right into it. So Mr. Guillaume, looking back on your career, what actions or decisions were pivotal in helping you to succeed in the aviation business?
All right, first of all, good morning all, and it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here to be able to share my journey with you all. Kathy, the first question is something that I could probably spend hours on, but I'm going to try to give you all somewhat the abridged version as best as I can. I say the decisions and the actions that were pivotal in my career, I'd summarize it in two ways, right? Number one is no fear. And number two is having emotional intelligence. With regards to no fear, I remember early on in my career, I don't remember exactly when, but I came across a quote from Nelson Mandela that says, I don't lose, I win or I learn, right? And that quote, it somewhat served as the foundation for all the different steps that I took from that point forward that led me to the point where, I led close to $6 billion worth of construction in the New York metro area. But taking it back to the early days, shortly after hearing that quote and internalizing it, I began to just walk in a sense of boldness, right? In work, I was working for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey at the time, and I kept raising my hand because this almost $400 million project, which is the longest runway at JFK Airport, it was probably one of the biggest expenditures for the Port Authority at the time, and I just kept raising my hand, telling my boss, like, I'm ready. Even though I was only, 3 or 4 years in, there were other folks who were a lot more seasoned than I was, but I just kept raising my hand and advocating for myself to let them know that I am ready. And, lo and behold, he took a shot on me, and, the rest was history. We were able to successfully complete that project. Moving into the next phase of my career after that project was completed, again, raising my hand, wanting to say, like, listen, I want to do more. I've spent time working on the runways. Now I want to diversify my skills and do something different. And I wanted to transition into more building construction. And, again, raising my hand, advocating for myself, which, led to a promotion, moving over to another airport, working in more building as opposed to airfield and civil work. And next thing you know, I get a call from Delta Airlines wanting me to come in and lead their capital improvement projects in all three airports in New York, JFK, LaGuardia, and at Newark Airport. And just, again, showing my worth, always stepping up, taking on the biggest challenges. And 2 years into my Delta career, I was promoted to serve as the deputy director for a $4 billion project. And the largest project that I led prior to that $4 billion project was a $3 million project. So, when you look at the magnitudes, right, of going from leading a $3 million project to now being asked to be a leader on a $4 billion project, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But the one thing that I do know is that I don't lose, I win or I learn. So I know that every step that I go through, it's a learning moment. And it just propelled me to be able to understand when I need to raise my hand, when I need to be quiet, and when I need to step up and lead. And it was a successful outcome at LaGuardia. And midway through, I was promoted to being the director at JFK. And, that, alone was a great experience. So I would say, the first part of just don't be afraid. You just walk with boldness, be confident in what you know and what you don't know. Another, I'd say, pivotal moment, because life is a journey. You always evolve. It was a book that I read, The 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz. And in the 4 Agreements, it was just another change in my leadership style, right? And if anyone is familiar with that book, it's one, be impeccable with your word. If you say something, do it, right? Be a man or woman of your word, right? Don't take anything personal. Don't take anything personal. Always do your best. Right. And those are the ways that you will always be successful if you approach life in that way. And then and I apologize, I could keep going on and on, but I'm just going to try to condense it as best as I can. During our project, we had these tenets, right, that we made sure that our entire team abided by, right? And it's and those tenets were planning, communication, execution, and accountability, right? Planning, right? If you don't plan, someone is planning for you, right? So if you want to take charge of your career, you have to plan it out. You have to map it out. It's not going to be perfect, right? And I'll get to what happens when it's not perfect, but have a plan. Right? Communication is key, right? 90% of projects fail because of communication. So, you have a mouth and a voice for a reason, right? So you have to use it. Execution, that goes without saying, you have to execute. And accountability, not only do you have to hold yourself accountable, right? Do not blame anyone. You are in charge of your life. So you have to hold yourself accountable, and also hold the people who are indebted to you accountable as well. When things don't go right, what happens, right? I know if you all heard the saying, I think it was Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, right? So what happens, right? How do you overcome that, right? And this is something that's actually new in my whole leadership journey, and it's something that I've kind of developed over the last a year or so. It's grit. Right, and it's not. I didn't develop it. Right, everyone knows grit, but it's something that you have to have in order to push through, right? And I created a little acrostic for grit, right? G is always give it your best. R, remain resilient when facing obstacles. I, intentional effort. And T, trust the process, right? If you always give it your best, right, and you remain resilient when you're facing those obstacles, because it's going to come. That's the one thing I can guarantee you all, that you will run against obstacles, you will face opposition, all of that, all the stuff that will try to steer you off your path. You will face it, but you have to remain resilient, right? And everything that you do, there has to be intentional effort to solve it, right? Don't just go in willy-nilly and just think that you're just going to get it done. You have to be able to sit down, look at things critically, come up with a solution, and have an intentional approach to it. And then trust the process, right? Processes are developed for a reason, and as part of the process, there is the ability to make audibles. So you have to constantly go through that plan, do, act type of mentality, where you plan, you act, and then you make adjustments as needed in order to continue to thrive and grow.
Wow, that was amazing. Very, very rich, wise words, right? Leadership practices is what I just kept hearing. Leadership practices, best practices, I might add, that will transcend wherever we are in life, whether it's in school, whether it's at work, whether it's within our family units, right? Okay, thank you so much. What are some of the most promising entry points for students interested in the business side of the aviation industry?
I think Dr. King in his intro, he kind of touched on it. The aviation industry, it's a microcosm for the world, right? I mean, everything that you can think of as far as products, services, all of that is in the aviation business. From, I think a gentleman mentioned security, right? Legal and security, right? I mean, every deal that you have, you need to have lawyers, right, to review it. And with regards to airport, obviously security, making sure that passengers are able to process through safely. Computer science, right? Everything is computer based, right? So being able to have reliable networks as well as data systems, it's key to the aviation business. So it's your passion, right? What is it that you want to do, and that is the first step, right? Understanding that you have to network, you have to be seen, right? I mean, right? Everyone here has probably the most powerful thing in their hands, and that is your cell phone. Like the amount of information and the amount of opportunities you have with that little powerful device can lead to endless opportunities, right? One of the things that I do a lot now is I go to a lot of networking events, right? And the one thing that I realize is when I see the same person over and over and over again, that person gets etched in your brain, right? And that is what you have to do in order to really penetrate the industry. Is you have to be persistent. You have to be persistent. You have to show up. And when you show up, you need to show up with confidence, right? No one is going to buy into you if you don't believe in yourself. So having that confidence in your skills, in your ability, and understanding that you are someone who can be teachable, coachable, and you're willing to learn is something that, as an employer, someone who's making a hiring decision, that's what I look for. I look for someone who's coachable more than their skills, because anyone can learn anything, right? But are you willing to be able to adapt to the ever-changing needs of the business? Are you able to be resourceful, right? Where if you don't know it today, all I have to give you is time and you'll come back with a solution. Those are the things that I think that you need to sell yourself on, or the skills that you have to have in order to be able to penetrate the industry and get a good opportunity.
Thank you so much. That's very insightful. In addition to what you just shared, are there any specific certifications or classes that you think students could benefit from as they plan to enter the aviation industry?
Yeah.
Certifications are good, right? And it's based on your major. I mean, you could look up any professional organization that specializes in your particular area. And yes, if you get a certification, that's great. For example, I'm in the construction and project management world, if you want to say that. So there are CMA certifications. You can get PMP, project management professionals. I mean, if you're in accounting, CPA. So I mean, there's always there's a plethora of certifications that I recommend that you get. But and here's the big but: it's not something that you need to fully rely on. And what I mean by that is, don't let the certification deter you from going after what you want, right? Because I've based on my resume, right, I've led close to $6 billion worth of construction, and I don't have any of those certifications that I just mentioned that are in my area, right? So I'm just a testament to show you that, if you want it, go for it. Believe in yourself and push. And if that's, and you'll get there. Don't let the certification hold you back. Pursue it. It's great. It looks good on your resume. There are some hiring managers that will go through, and if they see that those acronyms at the back of your name, it automatically moves your resume to the different pile. But again, skills, being coachable, being resourceful, those are the things that will 9 times out of 10 get you the job over someone with certification. So get your certifications. It's great, but don't let it deter you from going after the position and the career that you want.
All right, thank you. What specific areas of aviation business, such as airport operations, supply chain management, or finance, offer the best opportunities for growth?
So I'm fortunate where, throughout my career, I was able to work on, I'm gonna say, the 3 main sides of the aviation business. I worked for 10 years on the airport operations side. I also worked for Delta Airlines for 10 years, and now, 4 months working as a consultant. I would say that with regards to the best opportunity or best points for opportunity, I mean, it's, again, it goes back to your passion and what do you want to do, right? There are successful ways on the airport operations side where you can have a great career and you can work on many different things. If you are an electrician, right, there are ways to get into that field. On the business side, the one area that I would recommend is finance, right? Finance is, number one, not only is it a good way to break into the industry, but it is something that every business needs, as you all know. But also, I've found in my career and in my journey that if you want to get into like that C-suite level, if your aspirations is to move higher up in the organization, having a very solid finance background is probably, I'd say, the most important skills to have. Like as I'm gonna say, as good as I am, I know that I'll never make it into, I would have never made it into the C-suite of Delta because of just not having a strong finance background. I'm learning it. But it's something that you just have to just be willing to push and try. But yeah, I think finance would probably be the best way to like really enter into the aviation business to grow. But almost every major that's here now, there is a strong path for you to get into the aviation business.
Thank you. Very, very informative. And I know our students are taking so many notes. All right, so Mr. Guillaume, you have such a vast and interesting background and areas of expertise. I imagine that at some point in your years, right, of working in this industry that you have faced some challenges. And you talked earlier about having grit and being resilient. Could you just touch on at least just one maybe situation or circumstance where you faced a challenge and how you navigated it?
All right, so and it's actually I would say recent, and within the last 3 years recent. During the execution of our JFK project, the project, number one, we signed a bad deal, right? And I'm going to, raise my hand because my boss and I, we were somewhat the architects of the deal, and we got super confident, right? We got super cocky. We said that we were going to deliver a project that would normally take, 3 years. We said we would be able to do it in 2. Right, because we were coming off of a high at LaGuardia Airport, so we just thought that we would get it done. During the early phase of the project, when you started to map out your project and now you started to go into procurement, it was actually at the height of the biggest supply chain interruption in U.S. history, and that was post the pandemic. All right, things that we thought were supposed to arrive on site in 3 months, we were getting quoted almost 52 weeks, 60 weeks, right? And when we looked at our project plan, and I'm going to focus more on our electrical switchgear in order to power up the new building, it was not set to arrive until well after when we were supposed to vacate the building that we were operating from. And the airport operator was clear in telling us that if your aircraft is not out of that building by this date, we're going to move you someplace else, which would have irreparable damage to the Delta Airlines New York portfolio from, loss of what they call airline slots, where, the FAA plans when you can land and take off, which would lead to billions of dollars over X years of revenue loss for Delta. Right. So that was not an option. We had to come up with a solution. And the solution we came up with was to go around the United States and throughout different suppliers. And we came up with this temporary electrical system. We found a space that it was not critical for the operation. So we built a temporary electrical room to get the building operational on time, and then come up with a plan to revert or reverse the temporary situation into a permanent. All right, so it not only we were able to achieve the opening on time, however, it wreaked havoc on our budget. So, I mean, it's safe to say I had to go back and ask for more money, which was not fun, but it was something that was necessary, right? Because when you look at the ramifications for not achieving the opening on time, I mean, the money that we were able to go back and receive in order to complete the project, I mean, it just pales in comparison. So that was a challenge. And one of the things is going back to grit, right? Just remaining resilient, right? Just trying to find ways. When there's a will, there's a way. And if you have to achieve something, you're going to find a way to achieve it. So I would say that is like a recent example of a difficult time that we had to overcome.
Difficult time indeed, but you didn't stay in a box. Mm-hmm. You were resourceful, and you mentioned that earlier. So very good. That is something that I know our students probably it resonates with them, because with the projects and the work that they have to do, sometimes, they run into little snags, and, I hear stories where they tell me, they had a snag, but how they worked around it, how they communicated, and to get it done, right? So I have one more question before we open it up to you all. So if you have questions, perhaps you can get up and begin to walk around on this side. Okay. All right, so my last question for you is, what opportunities can you share with them right now that are student focused, or that students can tap into to begin to get some experience?
So the firm that I work for now, we are a project management and design design-based firm. So I don't believe anyone here is a design major, architectural or engineering major, right? Oh, you are? Okay, good. All right. So we always have openings, right? Because I hate to say this, but on the consultant side, what I'm learning is the way you make money is you have to sell people, all right? So there's always opportunities to be able to bring someone in. We have summer internship positions that are open. We have this thing, it's called like Fantastic Fridays, where once a month on a Friday we just bring people in. It's almost like through networking, right? We select a few folks, and then you come in, and we have this. It's in a sense a networking hangout where you walk around and you get a chance to interview and speak with a whole bunch of different leaders, and then just based on just a casual and authentic type of vibe, we'll select the candidate. So that's an opportunity for the engineering folks. For everyone else, I mean, it's really just, go to the company's websites, right? Go and find like the Chamber of Commerce in the area, and figure out how to deal with them. Use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool to be able to find all the different networking opportunities, all the different jobs that are open. Use the power of the device in your hand. Right. I mean, it's, as I said earlier, it is a very powerful device, and it can open up so many more doors than I had when I was like coming up, because I didn't have a powerful device as you all have now. So definitely, use social media, use the internet to your advantage.
Thank you very much. I agree with that. All right, well, let's give Mr. Guillaume a hand.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Joshua. So my question is that I'm really into aviation ever since I was a kid. So my question is, I noticed you said a lot about how we can get into the business, but what is a good way of like how we can stay in the aviation business, or even become known to people in that business or in that field?
Joshua, nice to meet you. So to to be known, and I mean, it's like everything, right? I mean, you have to be willing, and I'm just going to give you my path, right? You have to be willing to take on the tough challenges, right? All publicity is good publicity, right? So get your name attached to something big, and it could be within like a department. It doesn't have to be like one big major project, but you can go in and start an initiative within your organization. Like one of the things I'm trying to start in my new organization is to use those dot cards, right? Because we have like sustainability goals. So I want to go in and tell everyone, as opposed to getting printed business cards over and over again, just get this dot card, right? You can go online and make changes, as your positions change. But the way to stay in the business is just to always remain relevant, and that's the way you stay in any business, right? Aviation, there are so many opportunities to move laterally, to move up, and sometimes you may have to take a step back in order to get into a different organizational tree and grow up in that organization. So you have to be emotionally intelligent enough to be able to get into the space and figure out what your end goal is and how to navigate throughout that organization in order to grow and stay in the business.
Okay, thank you.
I really was just gonna ask, did you ever expect yourself to get that far in the aviation business?
It all depends on which point in my life. Early on in my career, no. I remember early on in my career, my goal was to work for 30 years, leave and come back as being a consultant. I had no desire to move up in the organization. But as my mindset shift, as I became exposed to different people, different career paths, different levels of leadership, my desire changed. So early on, no. 15 years ago, yes. And I have aspirations to grow and be a much more pivotal figure in the aviation business. And through the company I'm with now, I believe that I have the ability to not only serve the New York metro area, but also to work nationally and internationally.
Is the one to surround yourself.
Absolutely.
Good morning. My name is T. John, and I just really had a question towards the part where you're talking about being teachable and being coachable and showing that. And I understand how you can show that in your character and when you're in person, but I wanted to see from a resume standpoint where someone is just given just a piece of paper of your experiences, how can you show that you are teachable and coachable?
You ever heard of the 30-second elevator pitch?
Yes.
That's where you show it, right? When you're handing your resume to someone, don't hand it to them. Don't just hand it to them and walk away, because you're not memorable, right? What can you craft in 30 seconds that will, number one, speak to your character? And I mean, a lot of your character will be displayed through how you present yourself, right? One of the things that we did at Delta, they took me through like executive coaching, and they always talked about executive presence, right? Just walking in and just having a confidence in you, right? That confidence, looking someone in their eye as you speak. I mean, that stuff resonates so much, and it leaves a memorable imprint, right? So making sure that when you hand your resume to someone, you have your 30-second elevator pitch mapped out, right? It touches on the key points of what it is that you're trying to convey. I mean, who you are. I mean, you want to work hard. You're coachable. You can just say all that in your 30-second elevator pitch, and and walk away, and that will leave a memory that the person would then think that, okay, I should call this person back.
Thank you.
I've known of your project at JFK. What a lot of people don't understand, when you work on a project of that size, you deal with a lot of personalities. Yeah, you chuckled. How, when you deal with contractors and other people, it's almost like herding cats. When you ran into those problems, when you, like you said, one project was delayed, we had a supply chain disruption, how did you best handle that? If you got a contractor who's coming in and say, well, I wasn't paid because they failed to realize it was a bank holiday, or they need to be paid. What was, if they don't get paid today, they die tomorrow. How did you normally deal with those things? The management of it all.
You said it best. Managing people it's rewarding, but it's probably the most taxing part of my job. Just trying to corral all of the competing desires of everyone, right? From a contractor management standpoint, the Bible, and not the literal Bible, but the contract, right? The contract is the Bible. So as long as I abide by all the terms and conditions that are stipulated in my contract, as long as, if you come to me and you say that there's a violation of one of those terms and conditions, then it's up to me to be able to make it up to you to ensure that I live up to my end of the deal. But if you're coming to me and you're just yapping, I'm polite. I'll smile, let you get off whatever you need to get off your chest. You get off your chest. But am I paying you by the terms and conditions of the contract? Are you abiding by it? Am I acting in good faith with the terms and conditions? And if the answer is yes, then we have nothing to talk about further. All right, so that's how I handle dealing with contractors. Dealing with people, it's a whole nother ball game, and that's over a beer, because it's something that it's very difficult to be able to get everyone aligned. But it starts off with having those project tenets, right? Having those project visions, right? So when we had those 4 words displayed at the entry of the project sites, as well as the entry into the project office, right? Giving everyone that daily mental cue that when we're here, we have to plan, communicate, execute, and remain accountable. It kind of get everyone kind of, walking in tune with one another, and also just having a vision. We put, the project metrics up on the pantry boards, keeping everyone reminded, having monthly meetings, communicating as leaders to let everyone know that, hey, these are the goals. We've completed X, but now there's still Y and Z that we have to do in order to be complete. So having that constant communication, making sure that you're abiding by terms and conditions, those are the only way to really manage a large group of people.
And one last question. When you dealt with like the CBEs, the women-led companies and things like that, did you institute programs with other inclusiveness? A lot of students are hearing about DEI and things like that today. When you do a project like Delta, when you're at JFK and your home base is in Atlanta, I know that, Delta, how was that experience for you when you were dealing with the CDs, the woman-led based companies, the minority-based companies? What was your genre, or what was your experience with?
So, yes, we had goals, and I'm proud of our records where of the roughly $6 billion of project I led, we awarded 30% or over 30% of those contracts to minority-owned businesses to the tune of almost $2 billion that were awarded to minority-based firms. The way we executed that, number one, is through communication and understanding what they need, right? I have this big project, and by nature, you want to de-risk everything, right? So you want to find that one throat to choke where you can hand all the work to them and let that person execute it. But we understand that that's not a way to execute the work in an inclusive manner. So what we did was we went in, we understood the capacity in the community, understood what these firms were able to do from a dollar value perspective and also a work scope perspective, and we broke up our work in a manner that would make them competitive to not only be primes on some of the work, but to also be, lead subcontractors on some of the work elements. So we definitely went through in an intentional way to make sure that we were able to get the, you use certain CBE, in New York we use the MWBE, minority and women-owned businesses. We were able to make sure that they got their fair crack at the work that we were executing.
All right, good morning, Adam.
Good morning.
So my name is Amola, and what I'm curious about is, as a leader, what do you feel like your leadership philosophy is, and how do you think that has affected your decision making? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm curious about. And another thing is, have you ever found yourself making decisions that may be different from what you would say your personal ethics are, but are kind of for the betterment of the organization?
So with regards to personal ethics, I can't recall an instance where I had to violate my personal ethics in order to get something done for the betterment of the company. I feel as if most companies, their decision, and I'm saying most companies, most Fortune 5 company, publicly traded companies, most of their decision making is rooted in, being fair and equitable. So I don't recall an instance where I had to violate or go against a personal belief in order to get something done. There were instances where there was something that I did not think was the right way to go about it, but being someone who is emotionally intelligent and understanding that the goal is to achieve the overall completion and not just winning this one area. There were times where I had to, basically take a step back and just say, okay, hearing from my team, my advisors, they believe that this was the best way to go about it. I didn't believe it, I didn't like it, but you know what? If the collective group made a decision or agreed on a path, I am a leader that would go with the collective group. There are times where I did have to overrule because I was very passionate about a particular way, and it was what it was. But I would say for the most part, 90% of the time, I will work with my team and make sure that we develop a solution collectively. And the first part, I apologize, I didn't catch the first part.
It was, what do you feel like your personal ethics are?
Yeah.
No, my bad. Personal philosophy.
My personal philosophy. I believe in a very democratic type of approach to work. I have my team members. I assemble my team because they bring a skill set that I don't have. Right. So I am okay with being, the one who's calling the shots, as I just said, the one who's calling the shots, or someone who is sitting back and having my team advise me and helping me find the right solution.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
So how did you navigate the speed bump, and what was the conversation in terms of getting more money? And the second question is, what did that teach? What did that experience teach you?
All right. So what that experience taught me is don't be overconfident. Make sure that you always take somewhat of a conservative approach, right? Especially when managing projects. Again, we approached it like super confident. If we took a step back and we looked at things from a little more practical standpoint and not focus too much on our confidence, emotion, right? Being emotionally intelligent, right? We let our emotions of feeling, that we're the superior entity, that we would be able to complete things faster than what was typical. That is something that I would say that I've learned, is to just be a little more conservative in my approach. And the conservatism, it doesn't take away from my confidence in believing that I can achieve it, but making sure that you have that, somewhat safety net. The conversation was difficult, right? Because you in order to get more money, you're taking away from something, right? And every company have their capital plan, and they have their objectives to be able to achieve A, B, C, D, and E on a given year, and they plan based on the information that you communicate. So now having to go back to say, hey, we need $50 million, and now it's it's by and that's not a good example. Changing the carpet in a Sky Club versus, giving me money to be able to execute my project. Those are like the decisions that, corporate had to make to figure out the projects that, they can move forward. They don't have to move forward with in order to fund the project overage.
Thank you.
Major here at Prince George's Community College. I hope to become a CEO of a drone logistics company. And my first question is, what strategies do you recommend for students to build strong professional connections?
Networking, right? Instead of going out to party, right? Find a way to go out and network. You have leaders all over the world that are willing, they're wanting to share their knowledge. Like, for example, this evening, I'm having dinner with my mentee, and people want to share information, right? So you have to go out there, you have to network, and you just have to tell them. Like one of my mentors, I called him and I was like, I want you to be my mentor. Like that was it. Like it was just like, I want you to be my mentor because I see where you are in your career. This is where I aspire to be, and I want to learn from you, right? People, when you approach folks in that manner, like I want to learn from you, obviously you have to make sure you do your homework and understand their journey, or have a framework of their journey, and make sure you make them feel as if, hey, you really are interested in, and I know you generally are, but make sure that you make them know that you're interested in learning their journey, and you see them as someone who can be a catapult for your career. And I guarantee, 99.9% of the time, that person will be willing to share the information with you.
What are some of the current trends or challenges in the aviation business sector, and how do you foresee them evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I'm more on the construction, infrastructure side of things. So for me, I would say it's the biggest trend is exactly what we did in New York, in the New York airports, is building an airport while it remained operational. So coming up with those phasing plans to be able to build new, demolish old, and then activate. So just having people with the skills to be able to execute on these large redevelopment projects is probably a trend that's going to continue to happen with regards to almost every airport in the United States will go through some level of redevelopment in the next, I'd say 10 to 20 years. But now it's just having the people to have the skills to be able to achieve that. So looking at digital technology, computer science, AI, how can AI automate some of the things that we do? One of the things, and I'm sorry for digressing a bit, but one of the things that we're looking at on the design side in my company is doing somewhat like parametric type of design, where if you go out in the field and the column was supposed to be here, but it's shifted by 2 inches, instead of having to go back in the old way to go back and do restructural calculations to make sure that, hey, is this thing strong enough? Now being able to use the information that we have and we amass to say, okay, shifting it 2 inches, it's not going to change the structural integrity of the building. So now you can make those decisions in real time and be able to move forward. And then just using AI for other tasks. And it's just technology is really going to be the way of not only the future of the aviation business, but also in the future of construction. And as I'm talking, I just thought about something: air traffic controllers, right? I mean, you all hear in the news that the U.S. has a shortage of air traffic controllers. So that's where I believe, and this is just a George philosophy, that using AI to be able to automate certain things, like making sure that certain messages that are communicating is done in a manner that is consistent with all of the other movements that's happening. I mean, you all know about the tragedy that happened not too far from here, right? Making sure that the message to all the pilots are clear to tell that, Black Hawk jet, go down to, 200 feet or the pilot to increase altitude. Those are the things that AI would be able to detect much faster than a human. So I see technology as a great way to help the aviation industry with the shortage of air traffic controllers that we have.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, my name is Lillian. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Lillian.
Yes, so I'm going to ask my most important question on this list. So I am an economics student, and I'm assuming that you had economics personnel on your team for your billion-dollar projects. What was their role in your projects? What were the kind of assignments that they did have a part in?
So I'm going to assume, because I'm not finance or economics major, but I'm assuming there's some correlation between the two. So for me, the folks that were on my team, number one, we had people who were watching every penny to understand how the dollars were being spent, making sure that the work that was being executed in a particular month, that we were paying according to that, and we were able to then look at trends and cash flows and make sure that the work was progressing in a manner that was consistent with the schedule. Because if you follow the money, that's when you really know where you are. We also had folks that were on my team, and there was like a dotted line relationship because they reported to headquarters, and they were able to keep the headquarters updated with how we were spending money at what rate, because airlines is a cash business, right? You have to make sure that you have enough cash on hand at all time in order to run the operation. So understanding how, even though I was a $1 billion project, I mean, it's small in comparison to what Delta does, year wide, right? I mean, Delta, I think they did almost more than 50 billion last year. So my, 100 million that I spent in 1 year, it pales in comparison to what Delta does overall. So the folks on the team, they were really there to just make sure that, cash was being spent in a manner that was consistent with business practices, as well as it was in line with how the company expected to spend money in order to keep the operations moving.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to officially end right now, okay?
Let's give a hand. George Guillaume.